today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So today we're moving on to the 18th day of the Purushotam Maas challenge, and we're on verse number 17 today. You remember we're on the Sloki Gita, the three most important. If you had to summarize the whole Bhagavad Gita in 3 verses, this would be it. It's a Sloki Gita, and it's in the Vedanta section of the 15th chapter Purushotam Yoga, where Arjuna is asking, Vedascha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. In 15.15, Arjuna heard this, that Krishna is the Vedascha sarver, the goal of all the Vedas. Aham eva vedyo is to know me, and Vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. I am the compiler and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Arjuna is hearing this and he's saying, wow, really? Because if you are the knower of the Vedas, then can you summarize the Vedas for me? So Krishna does that in these following 3 verses. And he started with yesterday explaining Kshara and Akshara, the fallible and infallible, that there are 2 living entities, the fallible and infallible. And today we're hearing of the 3rd living entity. So in total, there are 3 separate kinds of living entities. But as spirit soul, they are one. Their qualities are similar, especially the fallible and infallible. They are identical. But this living entity, the 3rd one, is the Supreme Lord Himself. So we were showing and saying how that this is completely defeating the idea of Mayavad, where we merge and become one. Because this verse clearly says that they are 3 and they are separate. Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. They are eternally like that. It's not that in the conditioned state they are like that and in the liberated state they merge. Because we can see there's a separate state for liberated souls. Those that are infallible. There's a completely different state for them. And those that are conditioned, there's a completely different state for them. And for the Supreme Lord Himself, He has a completely different state. So we can see that they never merge as the Mayavadis claim. So Prabhupada explains here, Bhagavad Gita Chapter 15, text number 17. Uttama purushastvanya paramatmeti udharitaha Yo lokatrayam avisya bhibharti avyaya ishwaraha. Translation: besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. So let's go over the translation carefully. Translation: besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul. So we can see in terms of understanding what we've been discussing about the Mayavadi philosophy, clearly this verse is delineating that there is completely separate entities here. So it says, besides these 2, what are those 2? Those that are fallible and those that are infallible, Kshara and Akshara. So besides those 2, that means that is separate now. Besides those 2, what is there? There is the Supreme Soul Himself. And that's the Paramatma feature. That's the Paramatma, and that is the Supreme Lord. So that's a separate 3rd feature. There's no way here you can mix that and say they merge and they become one. You merge in a conditioned state, you are one kind of entity, and then when you merge, you go back and merge and become one with God. Clearly you can see what the verse is saying. It says, besides this 2, there is the 3rd person. So one may say, because the Mayavadis say, oh, in a conditioned state. We're in a conditioned state now. We are God, but we are in a conditioned state, and then we merge and become one with God again. Now there's two problems with that argument. Number one, this verse is clearly saying besides these two, there is the third supreme soul, which is the super soul, Paramatma, God or Krishna. It's saying besides these two. So it's saying, yes, it's acknowledging that you have a conditioned state, but it's saying when you become perfect, you enter into the liberated state. That is also another state on its own. That's called infallible or akshara. So it's infallible. So that is the state. So now you are thinking that in that state you merge. No. Today's verse is saying there's a third being. There is a third state, which is the Supreme Lord Himself, Ishvara. What does the verse say? Uttama Purushas Tvanya. There is this Uttama, this Supreme Purushas, person, which is separate. He has his, besides these two, he has his own identity. So nowhere there you can mix this. Second point about Mayavad philosophy, if everything is one and we all are Brahman, then when we are in a conditioned state, what is making us conditioned? That is Maya, the illusionary energy. Oh, all of a sudden you got two. Now it's not one anymore, you got two. You got the conditioned state and you got Maya, which is covering him. So it doesn't make sense. Because when you become perfect, according to that philosophy, you become back one as God. So what has covered you in that illusion that has covered you to make you think that this is, you are this world and you are the body and all those things, then that's Maya. Oh, that's another state now. So you can't just say all is Brahman, because Maya is certainly covering Brahman. It's not Brahman, because it's covering Brahman, and it's so powerful that it has the power to even cover God. Now how can that be? So it doesn't make sense at all. Whichever way you turn it, this way, that way, up, down, jump on it, stomp on it, whatever you do, it doesn't make sense. You can't twist it any other way. We are eternal and we are servants of the Lord, and the Lord is the supreme being. This verse irrevocably states this and declares this. You can't twist it any other way. So otherwise there's no point of devotion. That's what we were saying yesterday. What is the point of cultivating devotion your whole life when you're going to merge and become one with God? Then why you wasted your time cultivating this devotional aspect of love? So it doesn't make sense. In whichever way you look at it, it doesn't make sense. This definitely makes sense. So Prabhupada goes on to say, so he says, the translation, besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the supreme soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. So we've seen that, we know who that is, the Uttama Purusha, Purushottama, the supreme Lord, the Lord who is fully taking care of and maintaining these three worlds, Purushottama, the Supreme Lord Himself. So Prabhupada says in the purport, the idea of this verse is very nicely expressed in the Katha Upanishad and Svatesvara Upanishad 6.13. It is clearly stated there that above the innumerable living entities, some of whom are conditioned, what do we call that? Kshara, they are fallible. And some of whom are liberated, what do we call that? Akshara, that means they are infallible. Of those two, there is the Supreme Personality who is Paramatma. So it's clearly saying this, and we can see it by logic. You can't twist it any other way. Now that we've got the Shastric evidence, Pramana, Shastric evidence on this, Shastric Praman, now it makes complete logical sense that you can't have everything merging into one. Otherwise there's no activity after that. You cultivated your whole sadhana to do activity, and then now, in the perfected state, you're just going to merge and become innate. Why you wasted your sadhana? Activity is more enlivening than just sitting dull like that. So Prabhupada goes on to say, the Upanishadic verse runs as follows: Nityo Nityo Nam Chaitanas Chaitana Nam. So you remember we quoted this yesterday elaborately. We broke down this verse that the soul is Nitya, eternal, and the soul is also conscious, Chaitanas. But what's the difference between the two, the soul and God? Both are Nitya, both are conscious. What is the difference between the two? Ek ho bahunam jo vitadadi kaman. One is maintaining the other. So Prabhupada goes on in the purport. The purport is that amongst all the living entities, both conditioned and liberated, there is one supreme living personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintains them and gives them all the facility of enjoyment according to the different work. So I think we covered that very clearly. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. A wise man who can understand him is eligible to attain perfect peace, not others. So we can see that once you understand who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you understand He's in your heart, you understand He's in every atom. We were describing this, Eko pyasyo rachayitam jagadanda koti, yat shakti rasti jagadanda yat anantaha, andvantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajame. That He's holding all the universes together, and is even in every atom, and is even in everyone's heart. So once we understand this, that He is a completely separate entity, and He's maintaining all of us, and He's maintaining all of this creation, then we will automatically learn to align ourselves with creation. Because this is His creation. Right now we're not aligned with creation, and this is where all the difficulty is coming through. So I think it's very clear in this verse that you can't mix it, match it, twist it, stomp it in any other way. There are three separate states of the living entities. One is the conditioned state, one is the liberated state, and one is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. And they never merge and become one at any time. So thank you very much for that. I hope you enjoyed the class today. Please join us again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.